How is it being Black in tech?
That's a good question. I can speak from my personal experience.
Thank you for watching TV Stop Studios. First episode of Why Tech with my homie Sam Tate. He has his own tech business. He's on tonight to actually give us a little insight how to get into tech, why he got into tech, and a couple other questions I'm going to ask him as well. And to get this kicked off right, Sam Tate, why tech?
Oh man, gosh, I mean that's a tough question. I would say from my perspective, like tech was always it's a tool, right? Technology is a tool that anybody can use, but I just wanted to understand, and I was always curious about how to build that tool, and I always, like from a young age, like back in high school, I started playing around with just web apps and like looking at websites and trying to rebuild them from scratch and stuff like that. So that, I would say, is probably the why. I just had a curiosity, and when you go back to the 90s, right, or go back to the early 2000s, like nobody knew that tech would take over and explode to what it is today. So, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I got into tech. That's a no-brainer nowadays. But if you go back in time, I just always had this natural interest. And, it's not too late. The future is going to be technology. So anyone who is interested in learning technology, you can always hop on board and pick up new skill sets.
Gotcha, that's awesome. And that's cool. You say, back in the 90s, people didn't know tech would even go this far, but people didn't even know, certain communities didn't even know about tech, So
yeah, for sure. Like it's funny because like an example that me and my partner always talk about are just how websites were back in the early 2000s, like website building companies, like web dev companies. Nobody cared. You know what I'm saying? They weren't getting any business because nobody knew. They're like, what's the internet? What's a website?
Exactly.
Now, and even in the early 2000s, like they just blew up. And then you got the giants like your Googles and the Apples and Facebooks and things like that. They've used technology to build out these very successful business models, and it's worked out for them. It's worked out for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It seemed like tech, I wouldn't say initially derived from that, but it seemed like websites kind of helped, like you said, boom the tech industry.
Yeah.
Went from there. How is it being Black in tech?
That's a good question. I can speak from my personal experience. I think you're seeing nowadays more and more people of color get into tech. I think it's just a natural progression. The jobs, look at COVID, right? The companies that were booming when the COVID outbreak occurred, they were tech companies, right? You got your Zooms and Facebook, they're still doing pretty well. So I think all people are starting to just migrate because it is kind of this safe area. And if you can develop a skill set that's in high demand, then you can build out a career. So for me specifically, being a African American in tech, you are a very you're a super minority. Let's put it that way. For the longest time, I was kind of like the only Black guy that I knew who was doing tech, right? Who was doing startups. There's pockets, right? It's not to say that there aren't a lot of Black folk in the tech community, but initially it was very, very slim. And now you're starting to see more and more folks get into the industry, but also you're starting to see companies make more efforts to draw people of color, draw women, and things of that nature into the tech market. So the future looks bright, and hopefully I think there will be more and more people of color and Black men, women, children, everybody who pick up skill sets and learn more.
For yourself being a Black man in tech, like, was it hard to find resources?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think in our society today, a lot of people overlook the value of a mentor, right? Because a mentor can show you the way. They can show you what not to do. They can correct you. They can call out your faults. They can say, hey, you need to level up. You need to do this and that. The information was there. You know, for me, when I wanted to learn tech, the classes were there, the schools were there, but I didn't have a mentor who was like, I had no one in my family. I still don't have anybody in my family who's like, yo, I'm an app developer, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very important. Yeah, right. Like, look in the mirror, like that's it. But I think that, you know, if I had like an uncle who like worked at IBM or something like that, or if I had like a dad who was like a software engineer or whatever, like I could be like, hey, can you show me how to do this? Like it's just, it's very, very, very important in anything that you try to do, learn, to just have a mentor. So, you know, I didn't have a mentor that was, you know, Black per se, but I did make an effort to make relationships with people who were, you know, in the tech arena, in the tech industry, you know, people who I worked with. You know, when I started out in my career, I was, you know, a very, very low tech type, you know, individual, and that's what my job was. I didn't do much, you know, technology, but I wanted to make sure that I built relationships with people who understood technology, because then I can learn from them. I can run by them and say, yo, like, teach me JavaScript, or hey, I want to learn about how to build React, or whatever the new flavor, the new tool is of the month. And they were from different races, they were from different backgrounds, but to me, my end goal was learning, building relationships, and getting that knowledge to help perfect my craft, help get better at, you know, the resources and the tools that I built. So yeah, and I know that's a difficult question to answer and even talk about, just simply because if you don't have someone who's done it before, it's very hard to find somebody. It's not like, you know, your mama knows a tech person who can say, hey, you know, my friend does JavaScript, he's gonna teach you JavaScript. So that was something I had to kind of do on my own, and I made those relationships. People would teach you stuff, surprisingly, if you approach them kind of humbly and just ask them like, hey, I just want to learn. I want to learn from you.
And did you happen to go to school for tech?
So I went to school. I actually went to college for political science, but I learned and I took my elective classes. They were computer science classes. A part of my side hustle while like going through school was I would build websites for people. You know, I'd make a couple $100 here and there, and I'd do development. And I just knew that, hey, you know, this is something I'm okay at. I need to get better at. I want to learn more, and that's what I did. But all of that stemmed from my interest, and I wouldn't call it foresight. I think it's just more so just being curious and being interested and wanting to understand how things work.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Now, you said that was kind of like your side hustle to build websites and everything. While you're in school, did you have a startup in school? Or?
Yeah. So I did. I worked on a failed startup in college. It was called Yakum.com, and it was right in the boom. This was like 2006, 2007, right when the social networks were starting to just pop up. We were moving from MySpace onto Facebook, and you know, I put together a team of some folks, and we got an investor, and we took a crack at just trying to build out our own flavor of a social network. It didn't work out like a lot of startups do, but I learned a lot, and I remember going through that. I said, I'm going to take what I learned from this, and I'm going to apply it to my future self. You know, over time, my future self will look back and say, man, I'm glad I went through that, and I am.
And kind of going back to earlier, you mentioned mentorship.
Yeah.
You know, how important it was to you. Could you see yourself being a mentor? And you know, are you a mentor now?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say I'm a mentor right now. Like I don't have a specific mentee that I talk to on the regular, but that is definitely something that is a part of my DNA, and I definitely want to just give back, take the information, take the knowledge that I learned, share it with the next Sam Tate, the next person who's trying to launch a business, launch a startup, understand technology and grow. Like I have to do that. It's just a part of the process. I've been very fortunate to have great mentors. I talk to them on a weekly basis, not just from the business side of things, who, you know, these guys help me out with my startup, but also just on a personal level. And they're, you know, some of them are African-American men, and they can talk me through like, hey, these are their experiences that they had when they built out their first startups, you know. So it's good to have that bench, so to say, of folks who you can reach on and kind of guide you through this challenging world of growing a tech company. So for me, yes, I got mentors. I found it very valuable, and that's something that I want to share with many people. Yeah.
And I always wondered, you know, I see a lot of tech companies starting up, and it seems like they just, you know, come out of thin air. Yeah. Like, are a lot of tech companies self-funded, or do they have an investor? Like, how does that side of it work?
Yeah. So it's a choice, and that choice is the choice of the company. So taking on an investment, and a lot of people don't really realize this, but when you hear like Uber raised, you know, $100 million from this venture capital firm or something like that. Like, it's the headline, it's the breaking news, but that startup company actually sold a piece of their company to this investor. And when those deals take place, there are some very high expectations of what that company is supposed to deliver, that return on that investment over the next 3 years. It may be the next 18 months, however long those terms are. So with venture capital, if you see a company that gets a $10 million investment, you know, from us on a regular, you know, day-to-day scale, we may say, whoa, that's a lot of money, and it is. But the expectation that investor expects from that company is, hey, I gave you $10 million. I want you to give me back $100 million. So there's nothing wrong with taking on an investment, but for startups and for a lot of companies, at the point when they take on investment, they have proven a solid business model. They have customers who are actually paying for their product. They're solving a problem, and that's the biggest key. Like, a lot of people just do stuff and they build things and it doesn't solve a problem. So it's like, if you're not solving a problem, I'm not going to pay for it, right? There's not a demand for it. So all of those questions have been answered by the time they get this investment. So that's a little bit of how the investment side works. On the other side, there are a lot of companies, and there's some successful companies out there who never took on an investment. They straight funded their company from the get, and that's called bootstrapping your company. So that's it, and that is a decision that the founders of the company actually have to make, because if you think about it, the further along you can get, if you start a business and you start getting sales, and you're literally just building something off the sweat and off your back and off your skill set, and you deliver it to your clients, and they start using it and they start buying it, and you start to grow and you start bringing in revenue. Well, guess what? You didn't have to sell a chunk of your company to an investment firm, because you figured it out. You're making money, you know? Yeah. So then when someone comes in and they say, hey, I'm going to buy you out, you know, I'm going to give you $1 billion for your company, I want to buy you out today. Well, guess who owns the largest percent of that? Or guess who owns the biggest chunk? You do.
Gotcha.
Because you didn't sell it out before. So you can look at investments almost like a loan. You have to, the expectation is that you are not only going to pay that investment back, but you're going to make that investment for money. Gotcha. So if you have a business, and people take on money simply because they need to accelerate, they need to speed up what they're doing.
So it's almost like the music industry. You either independent or, you know, you're with a label.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And like in today's day and age, that's a great analogy. If you can create a hit song and not have to sign to some huge major label and give up all your masters and sign all these contracts where you don't get a cut of it, all that money's coming back to you. Right? And if you can create a fan base just off of a YouTube video or just off a Spotify track, then all that revenue is coming right back to you. So what's the incentive for you to actually give away half of your name, give away half of your company to some other company that says, hey, we're going to grow this for you and we're going to help you do it smarter and faster when you're doing it yourself? So that's kind of the model. And I'm not anti-investments. I'm not anti-VC, because I do think that you've always heard people say it takes money to make money. It does. It does take money to make money. The question is, how much money does it take to make money? And how much are you willing to give up to actually take on somebody else's money to make that money? So if you can figure it out on your own, then you're in a good spot. You're in a good spot.
How do you continue to, sharpen your sword when it comes to tech? Like, are you continuing to take courses? Are you continuing to, work on other small startups? Or what is your approach in regards to sharpening your sword?
Great question. So we are, I'll speak for myself rather than just my company, but for me, I am constantly looking for ways to improve the process of solving the problem that I do for my customers. So back to where I mentioned earlier, technology is a tool. I am looking for new tools, not the old tool that, not a mainframe or something like that, some old stuff that no one's using. I'm looking for new ways to make things run more efficiently, to make things run better, faster, quicker. If there's a new demand that I'm seeing my customers, saying they want, or they want to test it out, all right, I need to figure that out. I want to learn that. So back to that natural interest, I am constantly searching the world for that. When I do find that, I explore it. I may talk to my developers. I may talk to my team. We may demo something, build it out, and see if it works. So that's one thing. Another thing that is helpful to your question is that it depends on what sector or what area of tech you're getting your hands in, right? So I think there's some basics that a lot of people need to understand or need to learn, the foundation of all technology today. You got HTML, you've got CSS, and you've got JavaScript. If you can learn those three, you can get a good paying job, or you can actually build a web app. Like, you can build something nowadays with that at a very decent pay, a decent rate, right? So that's 90% of the way right there.
Gotcha.
Then you have like back-end languages like PHP and Java and things like that, and interacting with databases and APIs and stuff like that. That's more of the specific kind of specialized areas that you can actually learn, and it helps to connect with those first three languages that you learn. So I say all that to say I'm currently in AI. I'm fascinated with that. That's what our company does. So whenever there's a new, maybe there's a new AI algorithm that's coming out, or maybe there's a machine learning conference that's coming out, or maybe there's something that specifically that has to do with that bubble of tech that I'm in. When that happens, I immediately pay attention to it. I immediately kind of, this algorithm changed. All right, I need to learn this new skill set. I need to do this. I'm forever chasing and learning that. So that kind of keeps me in check, but it's all because I'm playing in this space where I have to learn and I have to grow. And I think that's one thing with technology that a lot of people, and especially people new getting into the market, they don't understand. But technology is always changing. The same technology that you ran on your iPhone 2 is not the same technology that you're running on your iPhone 12, or 13. Like it's not the same. It's updated. It's changes. There's new things that you have to learn. So that's just the nature of tech. You always learn.
What is your view on AI, and how do you define AI?
Good question. So yeah, artificial intelligence. So I would say my view kind of aligns with, and it's not just my view, a lot of people think this right now, but they say that artificial intelligence, AI, we're not really there yet. Like, it doesn't exist at the moment, because what artificial intelligence is that it has to be intelligent, right? It has to think on its own. It doesn't need the touching or the developing or the crafting of a coder or a developer to work. It just does it, right? Intelligence is like our brain. When we walk or we take a shower, like, we just do it. We're going there and then it just happens. That's what intelligence is. So I don't think we're there yet. And I think we'll get there. And the reason why we're seeing this burst of AI and everyone's talking about it now and it's in the news is because for the first time in history, we have all of this information from the internet, right, that can feed AI so that these machines can basically learn and train and grow on their own. So I think we're at the early stages, but I also believe that, in 5 years, AI is going to truly be artificial intelligence. You're just gonna turn on your phone and then bloop, this world that just works for you, and it's gonna be based on all of your social media feeds and all of this information. Maybe your energy bill or whatever. Like, this world is going to be specifically designed and it's going to just work for you, but it's just going to be based on this information that you've already put into the atmosphere, that's already out there. So yeah, I would define artificial intelligence, again, it's just intelligence that is a machine or a computer or something like that that's actually doing it. Yeah, good question.
We have AI. AI is, upon us. It's the era of AI is getting ready to come. Is there any other type of tech? So there's AI. Is there something else other than AI?
Yeah, so as far as kind of the new things that people really don't understand yet, but it's definitely gonna be a place for it in the future. I'm big on blockchain. I know me and you've talked about blockchain in the past. I just think it's going to be a resource, a tool. It's going to be like oil, in the 90s. We depended on that. We built this infrastructure all on this resource. To me, I think that's what blockchain is going to do. You see it with cryptocurrency. You see banks starting to look into blockchain and adopt it. I think PayPal recently said they were going to adopt it. So it's dope, but it's starting to happen. And it's such a concept that a lot of people have a hard time understanding what exactly it is. They just don't want to touch it. And I think it's going to be one of those things that there may be a new app or a new service that you pay for in the future, and you're just going to pay for it, Netflix or whatever. You're just going to pay for it and not think twice about it. But the underlying fabric, the engine that's going to be running it, what it's going to be based on, will be something like the blockchain. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I've heard stuff about, I've looked into what is it, VR and kind of this virtual reality type stuff. A lot of people are paying a lot of attention into that for gaming, but even education and things like that, because with COVID, everyone's remote, everybody's from home. You still want to experience what it's like to be in the classroom or be with your friends or whatever that is. These experiences are digital. Everyone has a laptop or cell phone or internet connection these days, so you might as well build something that they can use.
Yeah. Can AI and the blockchain exist together, or does it have to be separate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're just tools. They're tools that will perform a specific job. So an example of that, AI may help. Let's look at the insurance agency, and I'm sure there's a company out there that does this, but let's look at insurance, right? You get into a car wreck and you need to hit up Geico or your insurance company for help. You need to file a claim, right? So you may call, and that voice on the other end, it won't be a person, it'll be a computerized voice. And you say, I just had a car wreck, I need to file a claim. Okay, what is your name? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, what state do you live in? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm pulling up your file right now. All right, we're gonna get you in touch with an agent right now. And it passes you over to this person who's an agent. So that process to take your information, give it to the company, pretty much tee up the process of filing a claim, artificial intelligence does that. The computer will know, hey, this is what this person needs, this is where they are, this is who they are, we need to help them out urgently right now. And who knows, maybe years from now, you may not ever talk to a human to file a claim. It may just all be through AI, right? It may be through a computer, and you just do it and it works not only just as good, but even better than talking to somebody who just got back on a lunch break and they had a bad day, right? So that's that side of it, but still staying in the insurance space and using this example, the person who is the representative from your insurance company, they take your information and they need to pretty much record that you actually filed this claim at this point in time. And there's no like, oh, I'm gonna wait until Tuesday to file Spikes' claim, or yeah, it's a holiday, so I can't help you. We'll help you out on Monday, because this needs to be tracked, it needs to be managed, and you need help right now. You need to file your claim today. Well, this person may actually process your claim, and that claim gets written to the blockchain, which is it's like a ledger. That's what people always say, but it's just a way of recording an event that happened in time, and it can't be tampered with. Nobody can ever say, no, this didn't happen, or nobody can ever say, no, I didn't call and file that claim, it was somebody else. Like, no, like once this happens, it's there, it's foolproof. That's what the blockchain does. So that the insurance company may do that, and they may actually record that, and then over time, if you are a habitual claim filer, they may look back on their records and say, look, man, this was you. We know it was you. It wasn't your son. It wasn't your cousin. This was you. We have it recorded right here. You can't change that. So it'll be used, and I think it'll be used in multiple ways. And I think AI, blockchain, all of that, it's just tech. It's just tech. It all just works together.
So now, AI is seem to be super helpful for us, in the future, and how we operate and do things. Do you see AI being, bad for us, bad for the human race?
Yes, the end is near. I think there do need to be some measures in place, just to make sure that whatever is developed with AI, it's used for good and not for bad. AI is only as good as the information that it has. So I was thinking about this the other day. If you were to take the history of the United States and literally just you make a database of every event that happened to African Americans, people of color, or non-people of color, it doesn't matter. Everything that happened in the United States, and you give it to AI and you say, AI, based on the history of this country and all this information, you go ahead and start making decisions based on what you know, based on the information from our history. AI is going to read that and they're going to say, well, dang, for hundreds of years, African Americans were slaves. Okay, well, yep, that's a good thing. Let's make them slaves again. It's like AI is only as good as the information that it has. Or it's gonna say like, hey, for X amount of years, this group of people were treated badly. Okay, well, that's the majority. So let's go this way. I'm gonna predict the future and we're gonna make it this way. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm not saying that like AI is just this thing out there and someone's dumb enough to do that. But what I'm saying is that I use that as an example just to show that like we got to make sure that the information coming in is information that's good information, is clean information. It's information that will actually create outcomes that are beneficial and helpful to people, not create outcomes that end up breaking apart society and hurting people. And that's where I think there needs to be some checks and balances in place with AI, just so that it doesn't get out of control. It's very, very powerful, especially when you're just automating doing things. Like, imagine if every morning you have I'm sure some people have this, but like, I drink coffee every morning. All right, well, the moment I open my eyes, my coffee pot starts bubbling. You know, I don't even have to get up and press the button. Just bam, it happens, and it just knows. And the TV comes on, and the lights dim, and you know, maybe my wife likes John Legend, so some John Legend starts playing in the background to wake her up. You know, so like, it's good when there's good information and good things that come in there, but at the same time, it could be terrible. It could say, I want to give Sam a bad day, so let's bust his back window and make the dog start barking. And you know, it could do that. It's powerful enough to do that. So that's my take on that. I don't think it's as scary and as bad as people think. I just think there has to be some responsible folks out there who are actually building these tools. They know the power of it.
Gotcha. Has there ever been a time since you've been in tech you just wanted to call it quits and do something else?
Yeah, I would definitely say yeah. Not necessarily call it quits. I think I have programmed my brain to always find solutions in technology. So I may try to build something to make a simple task in my life easier, you know, or something in my life, maybe on my phone, I create a shortcut or an app or something just for me. So that tech has always been my tool. But as far as like getting out of tech and exploring other areas and other careers and things of that nature, I mean, you do get burnout, especially when I was working in the private sector. I got to a point where I was just exhausted. I got burnt out, but it was more so because I felt like I was fixing everybody else's problems and I wasn't contributing to the world with a solution that I thought that I could do. It was my song that I was singing to the world, you know? So when I jumped and did my own thing, started my company, that kind of gave me this new energy to continue grinding no matter what I couldn't see the future anymore. I couldn't see like where I was going anymore. I was just working and building something, and it's a different type of excitement, but it's a rewarding excitement, and that's what's kept me going. But on the other end, I will say that I had to learn to create balance and detox sometimes from technology. I cut my phone off. I don't get on Reddit and Facebook and social media, and you know, I look at a screen enough, my eyes start hurting. So I just had to back away from it, and I think that's balance. That's good for anything. You can't be obsessed with it.
You know, you have your own startup. Can you give us a little info and insight on your own startup and how's that?
Yeah, for sure. So Tango Legal, it's a conversational AI platform for the legal world. We basically create voice, chat, text technologies for attorneys and law firms. We help consumers, people who are seeking attorneys, whether you have a child custody issue or you need a divorce, we help them find local attorneys in their area, local law firms who can help them out. And we use conversational AI as the tool to bridge the gap between the two folks. You can find more information about Tango Legal at tangolegal.com. You can enable our voice skills on Alexa or Google. Just look for Tango Legal or say, hey, open Tango Legal. And you can start interacting with our skills. If you do have a legal question, you have to, you can ask it in plain language. You don't have to use legal jargon. You can say, I need someone to help me get my kids back, or what's the divorce process in North Carolina? And our skill uses AI to interpret what you say and link you up with someone who can actually help you out and take those next steps with your legal process. So that's what Tango Legal is. We launched in January 2020. Right now we're trucking along. We finished up the beta. We're in North Carolina only right now. So whoever sees this, just know we're in North Carolina only, but our plan is to expand across the United States within next year. So it's been fun. It's been an awesome journey. for me, it's just been rewarding because I want to help people find answers to their legal problems. And we've created a pretty unique way to do that. But check it out. I'd love to hear feedback from people watching.
Yeah, I think that's huge, man. Just for the simple fact, when you need a lawyer, or when going into the courtroom, or when you researching something legal, like they shoot out all this jargon that doesn't really make sense to you. Now, you've created a solution to that, to where you can just actually speak to an app, and it will actually, like you said, speak to the app in plain English, and it will actually shoot out an answer to you.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that we realize. And a lot of people, they don't have legal problems. There's some people who have legal problems every day. There's some people who go to court every week. But for the masses, you may not get a speeding ticket but once in your lifetime. But when you do get a speeding ticket, you're like, oh shoot, like, an attorney who can help me out. You get that court date and you're freaking out. What do I do? Where do I go? And the majority of people, when they look for information, they hit a search engine, they go to Google, they type it in, and what you get back and what Google recommends, you're at the mercy of Google. You're at the mercy of SEO. You're at the mercy of who paid the most for that ad in that #1 spot. But that still may not get you someone who's actually local, who's vetted, who's a trusted legal solution, who actually could be like 2 miles down from your house.
Yeah.
So for us, our focus is creating these hyper, they call it hyper local, but these localized connections so that you can get the right information, but also find the right person to solve your problem at that time. And again, that's what Tango Legal is, and we use AI to connect those dots.
That's pretty cool, because it's not just for people that are, in trouble,
Yeah, of course.
Somebody like maybe even a contractor, or maybe somebody that, is getting ready to move somewhere and need to ask some legal questions, or even start a business. Like,
yes, we've seen you need a lawyer for almost everything. If you sell your house, you need a lawyer. If you're buying a house, you need a lawyer. Draft those contracts up. You're starting a business, like you said, you need an attorney to do that for you. If you're getting a divorce, if you need to change your child's last name, it's a court process, but a lot of times you may need some help or some guidance from an attorney. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, they always think attorney, they think of, I'm going to jail, right? Or they think of, something bad happened to me. If you're in a car accident, a drunk driver hits you, that's a personal injury lawsuit. You need an attorney, right? So all of these legal issues, legal questions, and legal matters again, that's what Tango Legal is for.
Sam Tate, I do appreciate you for sharing your time with us tonight, and your insight on tech, and kind of giving us some gems, but also giving us an insight on your company and what your company solves, and how important it is to have and work with a company like yours. But before we close out, any last words that you would like to share with the world in regards to tech?
Sure, yeah. So what I'll do, I'll share a link that has a nice summary of online places for beginners who want to learn tech. So I'll share that with you. You can put it on your page and share it with folks. It's helped me out. It's very helpful, very useful. A lot of this information didn't exist when I was learning, but it's just cool to see how people are sharing free knowledge. So you can't go wrong with that. I think for anyone who's getting into tech, you just got to start. Just start somewhere and be honest with yourself. You're not going to go from someone who doesn't know how to use a smartphone to full-blown Java developer in 2 days. You're just not. But what you need to do is you need to know the basics, understand the principles, think like a computer does. Think about data, and find an area that interests you. If you want to build some technology that runs an airplane, then find out what technology runs an airplane and get involved. If you want to build a video game or a phone app or whatever, just pick a lane and start learning, and over time you'll master it and you'll develop it. That's why they call coding languages. It's just like learning a different language, but after a while you get fluent in it. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate you for sharing that information again. I do appreciate you for coming on to TV Stop Studios and giving us some insight on your world. And everybody that's watching, please like, subscribe, and share this video. If you have any questions or concerns for Sam, please leave them in the comment section.